All right, teachers, it's time that we talk about distance learning. I know that this is a conversation that you've been having for months and you might feel exhausted, but now is the time that we need to ask ourselves, is this working? You might be really, really frustrated and exhausted and not ready to have this conversation at all. And I wish that I could tell you this is going to be a short video, but it's not. There's some serious stuff that we need to talk about, and there's some serious things that we really need to consider doing differently. So for this video, I want to give us 3 philosophical things to talk about, and I want to give you one reason why. And the big question that we're trying to answer here is, why do something new at all? Right? You might be saying, Mr. Jackson, we've been doing something new all the time, and we're just starting to settle into something normal. But for me, in our district, we are 5 weeks into school, which means we're right at the progress report line. And so I had to sit there and look at all of my students' grades as I was putting them in, and my stomach was knotted, knowing that this isn't right. I had so many students that had done 0 assignments. I had students that had done assignments and I gave them credit, but I knew that the assignments that they did and the work that they did was not thriving. They were just getting by. So when I say, why do I need to do something new? The first thing is because this isn't working. The way that it's doing right now, you've seen all of the videos, you've seen all the social media posts from parents. Maybe you are a parent. You know that people are struggling, students are struggling. So why not do something new? Also, for many of us, we're like, well, it's going to go back to normal, right? It's going to go back to normal eventually. But I want to encourage you guys to realize that what used to be is gone now. Pandemics aren't normal. And when I say that, I mean that they come in and they change everything, right? I was in high school when 9/11 happened. And I remember it as there was before 9/11 happened and there was after 9/11 happened. In my class, I sat there thinking it's never going to be the same. Students were crying in the class. And then that next day, my parents were like, we think you need a cell phone. Literally all of the things that we're struggling with today, I can think back to like, well, yeah, right after that event happened, something changed. Don't believe me? Go get a copy of Home Alone 2. Watch Home Alone 2 and then realize that that was right before this thing happened. Everything is different. It's eerie to check it out. So we can't go back to the way things used to be because everything's different. We're going to talk about that in one of the philosophical points. But if we can't go back, we have to go forward. And if we're going forward, we have a choice. Do we do what we used to do better, or do we do what we used to do worse? Is this going to be a better opportunity for students, or is it going to be a worse opportunity for students? And that's why I'm saying, why not try something new? It could end up being something that is difficult to implement. It could end up being something that doesn't work. We're already doing that, right? So why not try something else? Why not do the alternative? That's the main why. Why not try something new? Because our students need it. Why not try something new? Because we have no other option. Why not try something new? Because if we don't do something new now, we might never do something new. So here's the 3 philosophical things that I think we need to change as educators in the way that we approach distance learning. The first thing, Zoom. Zoom is not your classroom. Zoom is an assignment. I asked my students if they felt like they had too much homework, and absolutely every one of them was like, yes. And I said, that's because everything's homework. You are at home. And there's no line between home and work. You are constantly doing stuff, right? And some of you are on TikTok or on Instagram while you're doing your assignments and you never got out of bed. If that's you, then of course this all feels like work. But on top of that, Zoom is something you have to actively do. It's not like showing up to class. It's not like when a student walks into your class and they're not really there. They're kind of just like chilled out, whatever. They sit down and they're like, hey, and they don't do any assignments. Then you can mark them present, but you give them an F in the class because they did nothing. With a Zoom call, when a student doesn't show up, it still takes work. Think about it like this. YouTube videos, books, and normal class. Whenever people do those things, they learn, right? In a YouTube video, you sit down, you learn this specific subject. You're like, I'm going to go look up how to do this thing in Minecraft, right? And then you get the information. But that's not the only thing you learned. You also learned how to YouTube. You learned what to like, what to not like, who's a troll, who to respond to, who to write comments for, who to subscribe to, what language they use. All of that was new to you. And for some of our older teachers, you know that it is exhausting to try and learn all of that new language. When our students show up to class, they're doing stuff that they learned in preschool. They're realizing this kid's kind of a jerk, I'm not going to talk to him. They're realizing if I sit next to this kid, then I don't get anything done, right? But when they show up to a Zoom call, they're having to learn all brand new things. And it is exhausting to show up to a Zoom call and to be like, oh yeah, that's right, they can't see me, I have to unmute, I have to turn my camera on, and if I don't have a good enough microphone, I have to make sure that I'm in a quiet room, and if they don't hear me, do I repeat myself? Do I say it slower? Do I give a lot of hand signals? How do I get my teacher's attention? All of that is new, and it's a lot to learn. It's not the same as the casual things that they learn in the classroom about socializing. It is taxing, and these students are getting exhausted by it. So if we treat Zoom like it is a classroom, then we're missing an opportunity to turn Zoom into an assignment, right? Give them points for actively participating in the Zoom call occasionally. Not every single day, not every single class, one Zoom call to the next until their eyes bleed, but instead, here's what we're doing, this is the activity, here's what I want you to participate in. And you're like, Mr. Jackson, that is a lot of work to schedule that every single day. It shouldn't be every day. That's the problem. We've set up this whole thing because somebody said, Zoom looks the most like our old classrooms, so we're going to do that. But it's not your old classroom, and it doesn't work. So the second thing that I want us to realize is that what is working for some isn't working for others, and those others are disrupting it for the some that it is working for. So when I have a Zoom call where 7 of the people are actively participating and 17 of the people are completely absent, and then I get a Zoom person that jumps in and says something inappropriate, right? You're thinking that's just like normal class, right? That's just like normal class. I get a little like butthead kid that says or does something stupid, and then I just have to tell them not to, and they're learning. But in reality, when I have all of those people show up to the Zoom that don't want to be there and that aren't getting anything out of it, I'm taking something away from the students that are thriving on Zoom. They're feeling less comfortable with participating. They're feeling less comfortable opening up. They're feeling like they are being judged because of what they're doing. So why not just let those students that thrive on a Zoom call do the Zoom? And why not do something else for other students? We're so focused on getting everybody in and counting heads so that we can get money that we're not focused on what is going to work for every single one of those students. How do I get the 1/3 of my students that has done absolutely nothing since the beginning of the school year? How do I get them to show up? Because they might be clicking onto Zoom, but it is not working. And when they do, I've had plenty of times that people have Zoom bombed or crashed the Zoom call. It distracts everybody. And then that assignment is ruined, right? And how many days have you started off feeling like things are going to go okay, and then something about the technology doesn't work and you're out for the day? You had an entire lesson planned, but you can't get on to blank, so it's not going to work. We need to think about this in a more unstructured way where we're giving students exactly what they need. And if something doesn't work right now, it doesn't mean it won't always not work. It doesn't mean that it's always going to fail us. It means that we simply need to find what works for each student. So we cannot sacrifice our students that are doing well in favor of trying to get our attendance numbers up. We have to make sure that what we're doing in our classrooms is serving everyone in our classrooms. So I would strongly suggest looking at Google Classroom and using that as a center for everything. Using Zoom calls as a supplement or as an assignment. Using something like Flipgrid as a supplement or as an assignment for the students that can't connect. If you have a whole bunch of people on Chromebooks trying to get onto a Zoom call and all of them have a bad connection, you're going to get nothing out of that Zoom call. The last thing is, we're not going back to school. We're not going back to your classroom. It's not happening. So I don't mean this as in you're never going to go back to school the way that it used to be. I don't mean that you're not going to go back to your specific classroom. What I mean is that the classroom that you go back to will be different. Those students will be different, and not just for the first few weeks when you get back. For the rest of your career, those students will be different. Because some of those students had an online classroom that really, really worked for them. And they had a lot of engagement. They had a family life that made it possible for them to have a quiet place, and they had access to technology, and they were doing well. And those students are going to come back and you're going to be like, see, everything's fine. But other students have been gone for months. Other students still are going to be coming from other places. You get a kid that came from Alabama or Texas or Kansas. You don't know what their process was. You don't know what their Zoom calls were like. They're going to have a completely different perspective. And that's not just when we first get back. That's for years after this. There is no classroom that you can return back to. You have to prepare for a new type of classroom. There are so many times when I get asked tech questions that I wish that I could just be like, if I could make everybody use this tool, I would be so happy. That time is now. We have to try something new, because moving forward, the classroom that used to work won't work. And if we keep on trying to get back to it, we're going to rebuild something that we know didn't work for our students. Some schools have done this amazing thing where they're like, we know that in California, we're going to start a little bit later, so we're going to make our Zoom calls start later. That was a great first step. Change for the classroom that's going to be. Don't try and make it the classroom that was. So those are the three philosophical things. The first thing is Zoom is an assignment. It is not your classroom. The second thing is don't sacrifice thriving students for students that aren't showing up. Third thing is that the classroom that used to work doesn't work anymore. And that's okay. This is a creative space where your failures are your successes. When you try something new and it doesn't work, you tried something new, and that's what needed to happen. You are a brilliant teacher. You studied how to be a teacher. You have years of knowledge in how to be a teacher. Now you have to be creative and playful and focused on those students more than ever before, because there's something new on the horizon, something new that we have to embrace. Let's be excited about it, and let's make a decision to make it better than it was. So all of this language about, man, this is not the way that it should be, and I'm so frustrated because of all of this stuff, we need to put that out, and we need to say, I'm ready for something new. I'm excited for something new. I am equipped for something new, because you absolutely are. Thanks for watching this exceptionally long video, and hopefully we can all get through this together. Just know you are amazing. You've done an amazing job. And for all the students that have been watching this, you too. Recognize you have a voice in your classrooms, and your teachers need to hear it. Thanks for participating, and I'll see you all